Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we embark on a sweeping and cinematic journey into the timeless world of the Washington quarter dollar, a coin that has lived in the pockets, purses, memories, and history of millions of Americans since its very first release in 1932, created as a tribute to the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. And what makes this coin so legendary is not just its long life in circulation but the deep cultural meaning it carries, the countless design transitions it has experienced, the dramatic changes in metal composition that reshaped its identity, and the incredible world of rarity, errors, hidden value, and collector passion that surrounds it, transforming what many people see as a simple 25-cent piece into one of the most studied and beloved coins in U.S. numismatic history. And as we begin this journey, imagine holding one of the earliest silver Washington quarters in your hand, feeling the weight, seeing the bright luster of 90% silver glistening under the light, a physical reminder of a time when American money carried not only economic value but a tangible sense of strength and dignity. And the origin story of this coin begins back in 1930 when Congress sought to honor the first president of the United States with a brand new circulating design, launching a nationwide competition for artists to submit portraits that captured Washington's character, dignity, and leadership. And while the official competition was won by sculptor Laura Garden Fraser, politics shifted the selection toward another artist, John Flanagan, whose design ultimately became the face of the quarter and remains iconic to this day. And whether collectors agree or disagree with the final choice, what cannot be denied is the immense visual impact Flanagan portrait of George Washington has had on generations, standing proudly on the obverse for nearly a century, becoming instantly recognizable across the country and beyond. And on the reverse of these early quarters stood the bold image of a majestic eagle perched upon bundles of arrows symbolizing readiness and strength, surrounded by olive branches offering peace, a balance of power and unity reflected in American culture during the early 20th century. And at the moment of its release in 1932, the Washington quarter was not intended to be a long-term circulating series. In fact, it was originally planned to be a one-year commemorative issue, but its immediate popularity among the public and its strong visual presence convinced the nation to adopt it permanently, replacing the standing Liberty quarter and beginning a new era in American coinage. And from 1932 onward, the Washington quarter began its long evolutionary journey through the Great Depression, World War II, the Cold War, the Civil Rights Movement, the Space Age, and into the modern era. And with each decade, the coin quietly absorbed the story of America, passing through historic hands, exchanged in grocery stores, gas stations, payphones, vending machines, diners, and laundromats, a small but constant companion in the lives of everyday people. And what truly defines the Washington quarter's legacy is the profound change that occurred in 1965 when rising silver prices forced the United States Mint to remove silver from circulating coinage, shifting the composition from the beautiful 90% silver alloy to a modern copper-nickel clad structure, a decision that forever separated the silver era from the clad era. And collectors today often chase early silver dates not just for their metal content but for the historical charm and distinctive look that silver provides. And perhaps the most fascinating turning point in this coin's lifespan arrived in 1999 when the Mint launched the wildly popular 50-state quarters program, breathing new life into the Washington design by creating 50 unique reverse designs representing every state in the nation, an initiative that reignited coin collecting across America and introduced an entirely new generation to the hobby, filling jars, albums, classroom desks, and family memories as millions searched their pocket change hoping to complete the entire set, followed by the release of the U.S. Territories Quarters, the America the Beautiful series, and the most recent American Women Quarters program, each marking a new chapter in the never-ending evolution of the Washington quarter. And throughout these design changes, the obverse portrait of Washington continued to be refined, resculpted, and reinterpreted, yet always staying true to the essence of the original vision, representing the perseverance, humility, and leadership that shaped the United States. And what makes this coin even more fascinating is the broad spectrum of mint marks seen across the decades, with Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, and West Point each playing unique roles in shaping scarcity and collector value. And behind each mint mark lies a story of production challenges, distribution patterns, and unexpected low mintage years that have become legendary among collectors, creating a powerful sense of excitement as people search for rare dates in old rolls, inherited collections, or even everyday pocket change. Because even today, nearly a century after its launch, the Washington quarter continues to hide treasures waiting to be discovered, from early silver rarities to modern key dates, from beautiful proof strikes to dramatic minting errors that sell for extraordinary prices, making the Washington quarter not only a circulating coin but a vibrant treasure hunt that keeps collectors all over the world engaged, inspired, and endlessly fascinated. as this single 25-cent piece continues its journey through time and history as a true American icon. The Washington quarter continued to evolve after its introduction, and understanding this evolution is essential because every tiny modification, whether in design details, metal composition, minting technology, or production scale, directly shaped the collectability and future value of the coin. And throughout the decades, the quarter became far more than a simple denomination as it transformed into a historical timeline struck in metal, beginning with the early years when the U.S. Mint was still navigating how to transition from traditional engraving to more modern processes. The Washington quarter adopted the obverse portrait created by John Flanagan, based on Jean-Antoine Houdon's sculpture of George Washington, and while the portrait remained iconic, the earliest strikes from 1932 and 1934 show stronger, bolder details because the mint used deeper hubs and more aggressive striking pressure in those years, which is why collectors always chase early high-grade examples with razor-sharp hair strands, clearly separated curls, and a strongly defined ribbon. Similarly, the reverse featuring the eagle with outstretched wings perched on a bundle of arrows had subtle differences from year to year that were not always documented officially. Variations in feather strength, tail detail, wing curvature, and even the spacing of inscriptions like United States of America and E Pluribus Unum occurred due to die wear, re-hubbing, and different engravers making touch-up adjustments. And all of these seemingly minor quirks became important for collectors seeking the absolute finest examples, especially since minting standards were not as uniform in the early 20th century as they would later become, meaning one die pair might strike beautifully while another from the same year looked weaker from day one. Moving forward in time, the transition from the early years into the mid-century highlighted how the Washington quarter became a staple in everyday commerce, especially during wartime when metals were carefully monitored but silver coinage continued because the government did not want to switch essential currency into experimental alloys during the uncertain years of World War II, and so the Washington quarter maintained its 90% silver composition until 1964, but demand for coins exploded during the booming post-war economy, leading to massive mintages in the 1950s, and these large mintage numbers mean many dates from the 1950s are common in circulated grades, but very challenging in gem or ultra-gem grades due to bag marks, striking weakness, and rushed minting procedures. Collectors also closely study mint mark placement on the reverse, which above the R in quarter can appear with slight shifts or punch variations from year to year, particularly in Denver and San Francisco issues, because mint mark punches were applied by hand until the late 1980s and therefore created small but important differences that specialists still catalog meticulously. However, one of the greatest changes in the entire series happened in 1965 when the mint eliminated silver and switched to the copper-nickel clad composition we know today, creating a significant dividing line within the Washington quarter series between silver and clad eras. And this transition period also created fascinating collectible anomalies like the extremely rare 1965 silver quarter, a transitional error, and numerous off-metal mistakes because the mints were switching planchets and experimenting with new blank production techniques. After the clad change, the portrait and reverse design remained visually the same, but the appearance of the coin shifted dramatically, with clad quarters displaying a more gray appearance compared to the richer luster of silver, and strike characteristics also changed. Clad coins often show softer high points such as Washington's cheek, jawline, and hair above the ear, making high-grade examples harder to obtain, especially in the early clad years from 1965 to 1967 when minting standards were inconsistent and the mint dropped mint marks entirely to discourage coin collecting during the nationwide coin shortage. In addition, the reading on Washington quarters, both silver and clad, carries important diagnostics for collectors because weak reading, uneven reading, and doubled reading can indicate specific striking issues or planchet preparation problems, and specialists use these details to distinguish high-quality coins from common circulation strike survivors. Moving into the 1970s and 1980s, the mint refined its die-making process, gradually adopting improved machinery and eventually moving to computer-assisted hubbing, which created more consistent designs but also introduced new collectible differences such as Type 1 and Type 2 mint mark styles, especially in the 1980s when changes to the shapes of the S-mint proofs occurred multiple times, and proof Washington quarters from this era began to reflect more modern polishing techniques that created deeper cameo contrast, with the strongest deep cameo examples commanding high premiums today. The Washington quarter also played a significant role in the evolution of collector-grade packaging, particularly when the mint reintroduced proof sets in 1950 and later began producing annual uncirculated mint sets, which allowed collectors to preserve high-quality coins directly from the mint, though early sets still faced issues such as PVC contamination, hazing, and improper storage, creating yet another layer of variation among surviving examples. Moreover, the Washington quarter, through its long and uninterrupted production, became one of the most widely produced coins in United States history, and this immense production scale means that although many dates are common in general, true condition rarities exist across almost every decade because achieving extremely high mint state grades, especially MS67 and above, requires a combination of strong strike, minimal marks, good luster, and clean surfaces that are very difficult to find given the way quarters were mass-handled in large bags that caused friction, contact damage, and abrasions before leaving the mint. Meanwhile, the quarter also evolved as a cultural symbol especially in mid-century America when vending machines, laundromats, payphones, arcades, and parking meters all required quarters, embedding the Washington quarter into everyday life and ensuring its importance far beyond coin collecting, and this widespread circulation means that collectors today can still find older Washington quarters in circulation, though silver examples are now almost entirely pulled out by the public. Finally, the early historical path of the Washington quarter, from its origins as a commemorative-inspired design to its rise as the default American quarter, reflects broader changes in U.S. society, minting technology, and monetary policy, setting the stage for later expansions of the series into major collectible programs such as the State Quarters, America the Beautiful Quarters, and later commemorative issues, and understanding this foundation is essential before diving into the rarities, errors, and high-value coins that make the Washington quarter one of the most exciting and historically rich U.S. coin series ever produced. The Washington quarter's long history produced an enormous range of rarities, valuable dates, and striking varieties that collectors spend years studying, and understanding these special coins requires a deep look at how minting conditions, die preparation, metal composition, and production demands changed across the decades, starting with the earliest silver years where some of the most desirable rarities exist. Beginning with the 1932 D and 1932 S issues that immediately stand out as key dates because the nation was facing the Great Depression, mintages were cut dramatically, and only 436,000 pieces were struck in Denver and 408,000 in San Francisco, making them the lowest mintage regular issue Washington quarters ever produced. And although many people know these dates are rare, what makes them far more valuable is the fact that they were widely used in circulation. Heavily worn and poorly preserved, meaning high-grade examples, especially MS65 and above, are extremely difficult to find, and the price difference between a circulated fine-grade coin and a mint-state example can be enormous due to the scarcity of pristine survivors. Collectors also pursue early double dies from the 1930s and 1940s, where imperfections in die hubbing caused letters, dates, and details to appear doubled, and some of these varieties are extremely valuable, such as the 1934 doubled die obverse showing strong doubling on "In God We Trust" and other elements, making well-struck high-grade examples worth hundreds to thousands of dollars depending on condition, while subtle die variations from the early decades are still being discovered because die manufacturing was not standardized and many dies were repolished, rehubbed, or re-engraved by hand, leading to endless small but collectible differences. Moving toward wartime years, the 1940s saw enormous mintages because coins were needed for economic activity, but key gems remain rare due to striking weakness and heavy bag marks, and collectors especially hunt coins with strong eagle feather detail and fully struck hair details, which separate premium examples from typical weak strikes. The 1950s and early 1960s, though common in lower grades, produced a surprising number of condition rarities because of rushed minting, lower quality control, and the fact that quarters were one of the most heavily used coins in commerce, meaning the majority of coins in these decades suffered immediate abrasion and contact damage. And only a tiny fraction survived in pristine condition. The highest value silver-era rarities also include proof coins from the 1950s and early 1960s with deep cameo contrast, since early proof production often produced frosted devices only on the first few strikes before the dies wore down, making strong cameo or deep cameo examples extremely scarce. And these coins today command premium prices in the hundreds or even thousands of dollars for top-graded pieces. Another major rarity category includes transitional errors from the 1960s, especially the incredibly desirable 1965 silver quarter, which was accidentally struck on leftover 90% silver planchets after the mint switched to clad composition, and authenticated examples of this error can sell for tens of thousands of dollars depending on grade because the mint was under pressure to phase out silver quickly. Yet stray planchets still ended up in the presses, and error collectors consider these transitional mistakes among the most exciting finds in the entire series. Other important transitional errors include 1966 and 1967 clad quarters struck on copper planchets, nickel planchets, or experimental blanks, because during this chaotic period the mint was testing new planchet suppliers and refining clad layering processes. leading to some highly valuable off-metal strikes that occasionally appear in certified collections. The clad era from 1965 onward also produced several rare dates in high grades, especially coins from the late 1960s and early 1970s, which are extremely difficult to locate in MS67 and above due to dull luster, weak strikes, and heavy bagging, and collectors pay strong premiums for these high-end condition rarities. Proof coins from the clad era also include valuable varieties, such as the 1970s small date and large date distinctions, as well as deep cameo examples that are particularly valuable because early clad proof dies were not consistently polished, meaning cameo coins were the exception rather than the rule. Moving into the late 1970s and early 1980s, the mint changed its mint mark punches multiple times, creating collectible varieties such as the 1983P and 1984P quarters that are notoriously difficult in gem condition due to strike weakness and heavy circulation, making high-grade survivors rare. And the 1982 and 1983 mint sets were not produced at all, meaning gem examples from these years must come from circulation or hoarded rolls, pushing their values even higher because collectors cannot rely on government-issued mint sets to supply high-quality coins. Era collectors also pursue an enormous variety of striking mistakes across all decades of Washington quarters, including off-center strikes, broad strikes, clips, double strikes, die caps, die clashes, and rotated dies. But some of the most desirable are major blank planchet errors from the silver era and multi-era combinations such as off-center broad strikes with retained collars, which are extremely rare and sell for high premiums. Another rare and fascinating category involves wrong planchet errors, such as quarters struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, foreign planchets, or experimental coinage metals tested by the mint, and these unusual mistakes often generate tremendous excitement among collectors when they appear in auctions. Equally important are repunched mint mark varieties from the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s, since mint marks were hand-punched into the dies and frequently show doubling, tripling, or directional shifts, and the strongest RPMs can be highly valuable to specialists who build variety sets. The most famous errors also include dramatic double dies from the clad era, such as the 1971 D and 1972 double dies that show significant doubling on the motto and lettering, though these remain underappreciated compared to similar double dies in pennies or dimes, meaning knowledgeable collectors can acquire them before prices rise in future years. Meanwhile, certain coins from the state quarter era later became valuable as well, especially minting errors and high-grade examples from low-quality production years like 1999, when the first state quarters were rushed and many coins show weak strikes, die cracks, filled dies, or notable doubling, with the 1999 P. Delaware Spitting Horse variety becoming one of the most famous of the modern quarter errors. In addition, full step-like detail on Washington's hair or the eagle's feathers is a prized feature among specialists, just like full steps in Jefferson nickels or full bands in Mercury dimes, and coins with exceptionally sharp detail bring higher prices especially in early clad and late silver years where striking weakness is common. Throughout all eras, the highest auction records for Washington quarters are dominated by ultra-high-grade silver-era key dates, dramatic double dies, deep cameo proofs, and rare transitional errors, because these coins combine historical importance with scarcity and exceptional visual appeal, making them the pillars of elite Washington quarter collections and ensuring they remain some of the most exciting and valuable rarities. The value of the Washington quarter across different dates, varieties, mint marks, and conditions is shaped by a complex combination of rarity, demand, historical context, strike quality, survival rates, eye appeal, and collector specialization, and understanding these price dynamics reveals why some dates sell for only a few dollars while others can reach tens of thousands at major auctions. Beginning with the legendary 1932 D and 1932 S issues that anchor the entire series as the key dates, where even heavily circulated examples command strong prices and mint state coins are exceptionally valuable, especially MS65 and above, because the original mintages were extremely low and the majority of coins spent decades in heavy circulation, resulting in very few existing today with full detail or clean surfaces. And auction results over the years show dramatic climbs in value whenever exceptionally high-grade examples appear, as collectors compete fiercely for top population pieces, with MS66 and MS67 examples bringing extraordinary prices whenever they surface. Early silver-era coins from the 1930s and 1940s also produce surprising value spikes in high grades, particularly for issues like the 1934 double die obverse, where the doubling is strong and collectors prize dramatic varieties, meaning well-preserved examples routinely attract aggressive bidding, and the highest-graded pieces bring premium prices because variety collectors compete with Washington quarter specialists. creating high demand in a small marketplace. The 1940s are generally common in circulated grades, but the finest mint state coins with outstanding luster and sharply struck eagle feathers can bring hundreds or even thousands of dollars because true gem examples are rare, especially for coins struck during wartime economic pressure when master hubs and dies were heavily used, causing many weakly struck coins that make fully detailed examples extremely desirable. As the series moves into the 1950s and early 1960s, condition rarity becomes a major factor, since the U.S. Mint produced enormous numbers of quarters but stored and transported them in ways that caused extensive bag marks, contact abrasions, and dull luster, meaning high-end pieces graded MS67 or higher are genuinely difficult to locate, and collectors have shown a willingness to pay dramatic premiums for these exceptional survivors, with some proof issues from the 1950s bearing deep cameo frost commanding thousands due to their rarity and stunning visual contrast, because only the earliest strikes from specially prepared dies exhibited true frosted devices before the dies quickly lost their frost, making deeply contrasted proof examples remarkably uncommon. Transitional errors from the mid-1960s, especially the extremely famous and highly coveted 1965 silver quarter struck on a leftover 90% silver planchet, remain among the most valuable and dramatic rarities in the entire series, often bringing tens of thousands of dollars depending on grade, because they represent the chaotic shift from silver to clad composition, and collectors treat these as the pinnacle of Washington quarter-era collecting. While additional off-metal transitional varieties such as 1966 or 1967 quarters struck on foreign planchets or nickel/copper planchets also command significant premiums because they demonstrate how the mint struggled to adapt to new metal compositions and planchet suppliers. Early clad quarters from the late 1960s and early 1970s form an entirely different category of rarity where grade drives the value more than mintage, because most coins were terribly struck, poorly handled, bag-marked, and lacking eye appeal, meaning MS67 examples are genuinely rare and often sell for substantial amounts, especially coins from Philadelphia which historically produced weaker strikes and fewer high-quality survivors, and even common dates like 1971P or 1972P can be surprisingly valuable in gem grades. Proof coins from the early clad period also show dramatic price differences between standard proofs and deep cameo proofs, because early clad proof dies were inconsistent and cameo contrast was uncommon, so collectors have pushed deep cameo prices to high levels as they remain extremely desirable, particularly when combined with perfect or near-perfect numerical grades. Errors across all eras of Washington quarters significantly impact value, with major off-center errors that show more than 50%. Misalignment, double-struck pieces with dramatic second strikes, retained collar broad strikes, and full brockage being among the highest valued categories because they display strong visual appeal, and collectors of error coins often pay premium prices for mistakes that are bold, unusual, and aesthetically striking, with the most dramatic wrong planchet errors, such as quarters struck on dime blanks, nickel blanks, foreign coin blanks, or experimental test metals, achieving powerful results at auctions due to their rarity and the difficulty of authenticating them, making certified examples from major grading companies especially valuable. Repunched mint marks from the 1940s through the early 1960s also generate strong collector interest, with the boldest RPMs selling well because mint marks were hand-punched and often misaligned, doubled, or tripled, creating distinct varieties that attract both mainstream and specialist buyers, and as more collectors assemble complete RPM sets, competition for the best examples continues to increase. Doubled dies from various decades also contribute to substantial market value, with major varieties such as the 1971 D or 1972 double dies remaining significantly undervalued compared to famous double dies from other denominations, meaning knowledgeable collectors acquire them while prices still sit below their true long-term potential, and as public awareness grows, these coins are expected to rise in value due to increasing demand. Modern state quarter errors, especially the extremely popular 1999P Delaware Spitting Horse variety, have demonstrated the power of widely recognized varieties because even though the error is common, high-grade examples and dramatic versions fetch strong prices due to mass collector interest, and additional varieties from the State Quarter and America the Beautiful series, such as die chips, die cracks, missing clad layers, partial collars, and off-centers, also command value depending on severity and eye appeal. Condition rarity continues to influence prices for all decades, with exceptional surface quality, booming luster, sharply struck details, and natural toning elevating the value of a coin well beyond its base price, and collectors consistently pay more for coins that combine rarity with beautiful visual presentation, especially when certified by top grading companies with premium designations such as Plus or Qualified Strike designations. Across all eras, the highest Auction prices for Washington quarters go to coins that combine exceptional grade with rarity, including top-pop specimens, dramatic errors, deep cameo proofs, and transitional silver-on-clad mistakes, and collectors pursuing registry sets compete aggressively for the finest examples available, pushing record-setting prices higher each year and ensuring that the Washington Quarter remains one of the most dynamic and valuable series in American numismatics, with certain dates and varieties destined to continue rising in price as more collectors enter the hobby and competition intensifies across all grades and categories. The rarest treasures of the Washington Quarter series emerge from a fascinating blend of low mintages, minting anomalies, transitional mistakes, overlooked varieties, condition rarities, and edge case survival patterns that together form an intricate landscape of value where collectors hunt for the extraordinary among the ordinary, beginning with the legendary 1932D and 1932S issues that anchor the entire rarity structure due to their extremely limited production and heavy circulation, leaving only a tiny fraction surviving in high grades, with the sharpest examples fiercely contested by collectors and consistently achieving premium prices at auction because they represent the foundation upon which serious Washington Quarter collections are built. But beyond these key dates lies a vast universe of remarkable coins that include double dies, repunched mint marks, transitional composition errors, missing clad layers, broad strikes, off-centers, wrong planchet mistakes, and other dramatic mint errors that elevate certain quarters far beyond their face value, and among these, the 1934 double die obverse stands out as one of the most visually impactful, featuring strong doubling in the motto that collectors prize highly, especially when found in crisp mint state condition, while the lesser-known but still valuable 1943 double die reverse rewards keen-eyed collectors willing to study minor variations. Meanwhile, repunched mint marks from the 1940s and 1950s form an entire submarket of Washington Quarter rarities, particularly bold RPMs from 1946D, 1950D, 1951D, and 1955D, each offering distinct die varieties that attract specialists who pursue full RPM sets with enormous dedication, and as these varieties gain wider recognition, their values steadily rise due to increasing competition among collectors. Transitional errors from the mid-1960s remain among the most electrifying discoveries in the series, nowhere more dramatic than the extremely rare and highly coveted 1965 quarter struck on a silver planchet left over from the 1964 production run, a mistake caused during the chaotic transition from silver to clad, and these transitional silver pieces remain one of the most spectacular rarities, routinely achieving enormous auction prices because they visually resemble earlier silver strikes but weigh differently. And similar transitional oddities such as 1966 or 1967 quarters struck on leftover foreign planchets highlight the unpredictable nature of mint operations during that era. Modern collectors also hunt vigorously for missing clad layer errors, where one side of the coin exhibits bright copper coloration because the outer nickel layer was never bonded to the planchet, producing a visually stunning and highly desirable coin, especially when the error is clean and complete across the entire surface. While other striking mistakes such as off-center errors showing 50% or more misalignment, double-struck pieces with bold overlapping designs, triple strikes, indent strikes caused by another planchet, and full brockage where one side shows a perfect incuse mirror image, rank among the most valuable and visually dramatic errors, constantly drawing strong collector interest and impressive auction results. The later decades of the series, particularly the clad years beginning in 1965, produce their own category of rarities because high-grade examples are far scarcer than their mintages suggest, especially for Philadelphia issues from the 1970s and 1980s where poor strikes, bag marks, and weak luster were common, meaning MS-67 and MS-68 examples are genuinely rare and command strong prices from registry set competitors who will pay significant premiums to secure the finest certified coins for their sets, and certain dates such as 1969P, 1971P, 1972P, 1973P, and 1982P are especially valuable in high grades due to low survival rates, making them sleeper rarities that knowledgeable collectors increasingly target. The proof series brings another layer of high-value coins, particularly deep cameo proofs from the 1950s and 1960s where frost and contrast were difficult to achieve and only the earliest strikes exhibited full cameo effect before die polishing removed the frost, creating a small and precious supply that can sell for remarkable sums when certified in top grades. And modern proof errors such as inverted reverses, wrong metal mistakes, or dramatic strike-throughs offer breathtakingly rare opportunities for collectors who want exceptional coins outside of the standard minting framework. The State Quarter era introduced its own universe of valuable coins, most notably the famous 1999 Delaware Spitting Horse variety caused by a die crack on the reverse, and collectors eagerly search for high-grade examples, while additional state quarter rarities including experimental planchets, partial plating errors, rotated dies, and double-struck coins attract strong premiums from collectors who focus exclusively on modern era series, proving that even newly minted coins can carry enormous value when something unusual happens during production. Full-step details on modern-clad quarters, though less commonly discussed than full-strike designations on nickels or other denominations, are beginning to gain traction among specialists who recognize the rarity of sharply struck modern quarters with fully defined eagle feathers or shield lines, and as grading services expand their strike quality designations, these modern condition rarities will likely become even more competitive, driving their future price trajectory upward. Rainbow-toned Washington quarters also represent a high-value niche in the market, especially naturally toned silver pieces exhibiting deep blues, golds, purples, and emerald greens, because collectors value not only rarity but beauty, and the most vividly toned pieces often achieve far higher prices than standard untoned examples of the same grade, creating a crossover market that appeals to both toning collectors and Washington quarter specialists. And with so many unique varieties, dramatic mint errors, key dates, condition rarities, and transitional oddities across nearly a century of production, the Washington Quarter Series continues to offer extraordinary opportunities for collectors to find coins that are not only historically significant but capable of achieving impressive prices at auction, ensuring that the search for hidden gems, overlooked rarities, and top-grade survivors remains an exciting pursuit for collectors around the world. In this final continuation of our deep dive, let's bring together all the remarkable insights about this iconic coin and explore the ultimate highlights collectors focus on when chasing the most elusive high-value pieces. Because by the time you reach this stage of research, you're looking at the absolute top-tier categories that separate ordinary coins from extraordinary treasures. And the journey always begins with understanding how minor production inconsistencies, striking variations, and evolving minting standards across different facilities transformed otherwise common issues into sought-after collectibles, especially when it comes to identifying subtle markers like planchet flaws, off-center strikes, die deterioration, rim thickness inconsistencies, and the faint shifts in relief that occurred during high-output years where presses were pushed to their limits, resulting in coins that might look normal to an untrained eye but hide microscopic irregularities visible only under magnification, which makes the hunt both challenging and exciting, particularly because collectors know that the most valuable examples often originate from transitional periods where the mint switched compositions or altered master hubs, leading to dramatic and highly prized outcomes such as doubled features, distorted lettering, strengthened or weakened profiles, and those rare instances where the dies clashed without a planchet between them, creating deep mirrored impressions transferred onto coins that later slipped into circulation completely unnoticed by the public, adding layers of mystery to each discovery. And the excitement grows even more when we consider that certain issues were minted in smaller quantities or under unique circumstances, which today makes them exceptionally difficult to locate in pristine condition, and this is why grading becomes such a defining factor for top-end prices. Because even a tiny scratch, patch of toning, or bag mark can dramatically reduce a coin's desirability, while flawless or nearly flawless specimens can command astonishing premiums at auction, especially when they represent the absolute finest known for that date and mint. And it's fascinating how the market continues to evolve with new finds, estate releases, and population updates from major grading services, constantly reshaping collector expectations and inspiring fresh enthusiasm among hobbyists who hope to uncover the next standout example. And whether you're searching through inherited collections, carefully examining rolls, or evaluating certified pieces with deep historical context, the thrill remains the same because each coin carries its own story, shaped by decades of circulation patterns, handling, and preservation. And this blend of artistry, history, rarity, and chance keeps these coins alive in the collector community, reminding us that even the smallest details can lead to significant rewards, making the pursuit truly endless and endlessly rewarding for those who appreciate the craftsmanship and heritage embedded in every piece. And with that, this concludes our full-length exploration dedicated to helping you understand the most valuable, significant, and collectible categories tied to this legendary coin series, giving you the knowledge you need to assess your own finds with confidence and excitement. And I hope this detailed journey helps you recognize the potential hidden in every coin you come across, no matter how ordinary it might first appear, because the next great discovery could be right in your hands. Thanks for watching.